Welcome to this edition of Global Talks, today with a special focus on talent. I'm Malin Persson. The theme of today is a very, very urgent one for all of us. It's how will we be able to match competence post-corona? We know that the war for talent has been with us for decades, actually, but it's never been as fierce as today. Individuals to be employed are used to new ways of working now and possibly requesting new conditions before accepting offers from employers. How far are employers prepared to go, and how will the matching be done in the future? And what is required from a region when it comes to attracting key competence, and are there any good examples out there? Welcome to an interesting Global Talks. Joining me today are three extremely talented individuals. Karin Danielsson from Cellink, Global HR Director. We have Poyan Karimi, Founder and CEO of Oddwork, and Malin Samuelsson. You are the Nordic Head of Executive Search at Alumni. Welcome all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And given who our guests are, I can promise you good discussions today. And as always, we invite you to send any questions you might have through our chat function, and my colleague Jan Edsager will cope with that to make sure we have your input. As you know, Global Talks is a webinar broadcasted to you by Global Business Gate, a meeting place in the heart of Gothenburg that really encompasses individuals and organizations interested in global trade. And today we are in, for us, a new venue, which is the International House of Gothenburg. The International House is a meeting place for international talents coming to work or study in the region of Gothenburg. International House is designed to offer activities, services and guidance for an easy integration into Swedish society, a one-stop shop, in other words. So a very suitable place to be, but let's get started. A couple of years ago, before the pandemic, Karin, you attended one of our seminars live, and that was completely on the war for talent. And given where we are today, it would be so interesting to hear where you, as a global HR director, recruiting a lot of people all around the globe, still with a headquarter in Gothenburg, what's on top on your agenda today? Please, Karin.
Yeah, so first of all, we have always been very keen of, we're not only looking for competencies, we're looking for a mindset that will fit into our culture. And with that said, we want to, of course, have the right people at the right places with the right conditions, but also to fit into our culture. And when everyone is working from home or remotely, and everyone is set up for agendas only with the time slots for Teams meetings or whatever it could be, that little chit chat and, you know, like actually getting to know the people behind the resume or getting to know the employees behind the screens, it's pretty hard to actually work with the culture and work with coming together, working together, you know, all the small talk, you know, combining the glue for a great culture. I would say that would be one of the biggest topic that we're trying to work with, like how to take a coffee break with someone without a topic or agenda. It's pretty hard when someone is working remotely to just, do you have 10 minutes? The chit chat when you're supposed to travel or when you're meeting people. So I would say that's one of the topics that we have. And of course, we also see a lot of possibilities now with when we can work remotely. We can also look into different areas geographically to find talents where we never would have thought that we would hire anyone before pandemic. So that's
many things.
Yeah, many things.
So it's both actually to be able to interview people remotely, but also then to give them a proper induction. and
exactly
to find the
onboarding
culture.
and exactly. So it has been tricky. We have found new ways of doing that, but it's a constant challenge to just find that engine or motivation or
It will be interesting to hear what you think will remain and what is here and now. So thank you. Good introduction. And Poyan, welcome. And to me, you are a true entrepreneur. And you was also, I must say that, you were recently awarded a fantastic award, being the Sweden's Young Pioneer of the Year. Congratulations, meeting the king.
Himself.
Yes.
Yeah, it was special. Thank you.
You are also the CEO and co-founder of Oddwork, working with employer branding. And where are you? What are your thoughts when it comes to the current situation?
Well, it's been intense times, as Karin says. First of all, just to comment on that, it's very true. The culture has been proved not to be something in the walls of the office, right? And we work with small corporations, but also many enterprise companies and multinational enterprise companies. And these discussions became very intense very early on in the pandemic about, okay, so we don't have any walls anymore in an office, so where does the culture live? And that implicates, obviously, all of those things you're talking about, Karin, about different systems or structures that are there to enable the culture with the coffee or how we take decisions or whatever it might be. And the whole employer branding question is not a one-off. There is not just one, put in this solution and you have it solved. It doesn't matter if you talk about a small medium enterprise or a big international corporation. It is a system, a structure that has many different tactics in play, right? And it's been intense times for us and for our customers to figure out not only one tactic, but many different tactics. And then also, employer branding was something, when we started talking about it like 10 years ago, it's been a subject for a longer time than that, obviously. But when we started talking about the war for talent and applications, going down per open position, suddenly, with the pandemic, it all accelerated. It went very much faster, right? So a lot of different questions had to be solved and answered in 1.5 years' time, whereas you had 10 years prior to that. So the tempo has gone up, which is quite interesting.
Yes, and a challenge.
A challenge, indeed.
Yeah. Have you at all been working with regions when it comes to employer branding, or is it strictly on business?
No, we have worked with multinational corporations such as AstraZeneca on regions, how to get people to relocate to Gothenburg, for example. How do we do that? How do we reach, as Karin is saying, also, this is a huge possibility, right? Now we can reach talent all over the world, either digitally, that they can work remotely, or get them to actually move to Sweden as well, and take advantage of the structures and all the great opportunities that Sweden has to offer, right? And AstraZeneca, for example, did that together with us with a big relocation campaign, targeting a specific target group within a research field across the world, and just showing the ups of Gothenburg and the pros of living here and what you can get, and showing expats, and they're telling their stories, basically.
Wow, that's great. And you have to bring them here then to the international hubs as well.
Absolutely.
Excellent, thank you, Poyan. And Malin, head of executive search from a Nordic perspective. And so where is the world today? I also think it's interesting because you have an engineering background yourself and been working as a management consultant. So your background is so international. Right. And now you, in a way, on the other side of the desk, finding people. So where are executive search after the pandemic, if we are after the pandemic, but in this stage, call it, of the pandemic?
I think for us at Alumni, it's been very clear that we are in a period of increased mobility in the work market. Some call it great attrition or great resignation, where if you look at surveys, some 40% of workers are actually considering or saying that they're likely to change job within the next 3 to 6 months in the US, in other regions, but also we see the same thing here in the Nordics. Wow. And I think that is partly down to, we've been through a crisis and hopefully we've been through it, we'll see. But where people have not been daring to change jobs. So there is kind of the catch-up effect of that. But there's also something, I believe, deeper into this where people, it's been a crisis on so many levels, where we've reconsidered, what's our purpose and direction in life, and linked to that, where do we want to work, for what purpose? And for us at Alumni, that has meant a number of things. I think one, our recruitment services is in demand and high demand from the board and down, because our clients want to backfill, but also they want to invest in change, transformation, growth. So that is one thing. I also see that leadership is increasingly in focus, because I think it's been clear that how well you've been able to cope with the crisis and the transformation is, of course, down to in which industry you've been in, but also very much down to the leadership you have on board, the quality of it. And so that aspect, but also now how you engage, and coming back, how you build culture, those things are also very much linked to leadership. So for us, that means leadership development, leadership assessment, those things are increasingly a discussion with the clients. And then I think thirdly and lastly, people are not only reevaluating, for what company they want to work, but also how. The hybrid work model, I think that's here to stay from a Nordic perspective at least. But also, do I want to be employed? Yeah. Or do I want to be my own? So the entire gig economy that we've been talking about for also decades, it's here and it's really happening now. And I think that's something we can come back to as well. Yeah. So I'll really look forward to the discussion. There's a lot of things happening.
Interesting. And you say, and that would be interesting to start the discussion on that actually. You said, at least in the Nordic region, you think that this hybrid work model will remain. And with that, do you also say that not in other parts of the world?
I think what we are seeing is that it's more difficult, or is a longer journey in some other markets. One, down to infrastructure. We have candidates in companies or in countries like the Netherlands, where you wouldn't expect it to be a situation or a problem, who doesn't have a real good internet connection at home. Mm-hmm. There's also a different tradition in leadership and work market. So I think there are things where we're seeing that the move back to the office is going quicker in some of our clients' markets than in others. And the expectations from the employees are also different. So yes, I think there will be differences, but I have a hard time believing that we will be back to where we were.
What do you say about that, Karin? Do you see that your colleagues around the globe ask for different things when it comes to working remotely?
Yeah, I see different things in different countries, of course, but I will go back to what I started with. It's we have built up a culture where we always love being with each other, together with each other, because that's where we are the best and we bring the best out of each other. So we are trying to make sure that everyone goes back to the office slowly, of course. But what we definitely can see is that people work much more efficient now, because you can choose to do administration work from home, and then if you need to have some meetings or brainstorming or find new solutions or whatever, we have done a huge job with the digitalization and leadership programs and so on, and some things we really want to do it in person. Some other things, of course, we see that we're so flexible.
Yeah, to be.
We need to be flexible, but also different depending on different markets. But
yeah, so you have, given the experience from the pandemic, we know more. We can split tasks, so we know this could be done remotely. This needs to be, and Poyan, what do you see there? And also coming back to the leadership issue, because that's very much in employer branding, isn't it?
Absolutely. A key factor in employer branding. I will just start by saying, on the topic, is this only for Sweden, will it last in the world? I would just say that I think that might be a huge opportunity for Sweden going forward, because Sweden is a good country for employees in general. If we talk about the Swedish work culture in general terms, obviously there are exceptions from that very rule, but Sweden is a good country to be an employee in, right? Much better than many other countries in terms of safety and social security and just straight up culture, right? And if we now imagine a digital world where employees can work from anywhere, Sweden or Swedish companies can indeed benefit from that. I mean, Cellink or Biko, you guys can go out in the world offering what you offer employees in Sweden, right? And you will outclass competition in other parts of the world who would never even consider that social security net that Sweden has as law, you know? And that is a huge opportunity now when there is no borders, there is no where to work, there is only log on to that meeting on that time, you know? That is a huge opportunity for Swedish companies. And then obviously leadership is an issue here, is an important issue. And I always go back to how can you measure stuff, you know? Because when we talk about culture, it's so easy to, you know, get fluffy and get very not concrete or not specific on what we are talking about really. So with a open and very digital world, we have to have KPIs on basically everything, also leadership. So KPIs in terms of, I mean, the yearly employee survey is dead, or if it's not, it will soon be, I can assure everyone. And the pulse, or the real-time employee survey, you know, that measures all the time, weekly or every 2 weeks or monthly, and shows us how the leadership is developing in different regions and different departments. That must be in place now.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about that as a nice to have a couple of years ago, and then put a pandemic in it, and it's a must-have. And especially if you guys are to grow, you know, globally, how can you grow if you cannot measure leadership remotely when you are forced to work remotely? So the leadership aspect is obviously crucial, but measuring it is even more so.
Yeah. And what about leadership? I think that's interesting because what you all say, I think, is that we are looking into a new form or a new version of leadership. And is that something that the old leaders can learn? And if that's the case, how do they learn, or what's happening?
We actually, during the pandemic, we implemented something that we're calling employee life cycle.
Okay.
So this is a leadership program where you actually, even before recruiting, make sure like what is it that we have? Do we have it internally? Do we need to look externally? We have so many different daughter companies or sister companies, or that we actually should take care of the competences that we have if someone wants to move or whatever it could be. Then also during the recruitment process, during the onboarding, how to make sure everyone feels that they are getting a proper onboarding with schedules, and also employee life cycles when it comes to how to manage people. How many meetings do I need to have with my direct reports? How many Teams meetings with the team do I need to have a week or a month? And also making sure the mental health. It has been a huge topic for us to not only just like look at the tasks, but also look the person behind and see how are you? Can I support you in anything or coaching? So it's very many different steps with a employee life cycle, but it has been very well
received by people.
Yeah, definitely, both by employees and by managers, of course, like having a manual of how to behave, or it's almost like a step by step.
Okay.
So some managers, you know, they have it in the backbones, but for some others, it's even guidance, or you know.
Do you follow it up? I mean, how do you follow it up? What the managers do?
Yeah, so we constantly have like performance reviews.
Okay.
So we're implementing a new survey where we actually are doing 360. So it's not only the employees, but also the managers. Yeah. And then we can see, like, we can take the temperature in different departments or different countries. We can see, like, okay, if there's any extraordinary in Singapore or in Japan or in Boston or in the hardware team or the software team or the sales team, so we can actually see and
take action.
Yeah. Exactly. It's still in an implementation phase, but it has been very.
But that's so interesting, because I think when we talk about flexibility, which is the hybrid world, right? The more flexibility you add, the more you also have to add KPIs.
Yes.
In all verticals, right? And we can talk about sales, and then we have to understand that if we are free, then we have to be measured, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and in leadership, the very same thing. And I think that side of the new mall, the new normal, is not pinpointed that much.
No, it's
Fully
true.
agree on
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
and I think that's quite interesting actually, because we discuss the freedom,
Yeah.
but not what that would require
Exactly.
from us. Is this something? And I was also thinking, Malin, when you get an assignment to find someone, a leader, can we explain what kind of leadership we are looking for in the new normal?
I think yes, and I think that's one of the key things where not all companies are so articulated with what kind of leadership and what kind of culture they want to build and are looking for. So I think that's one of the added values that we actually bring to the table. So understanding, so this is your strategy, this is where you're going, this is the culture you have, this is where the leadership you have, and this is then what you need to add to that. And how do we then find, assess, and make that match? So that is one thing. But then also, I think, even more broadly and generally, if you looked at a successful CEO 20 years back, the key trades, the five, the key trades that we were looking at was drive, ambition, and things linked to that. But actually now it's things that then were kind of fluffy and not so defined: openness, agreeableness, ability to shape a team and get the most out of everyone else, because actually there's no lone star anymore. With the lone star you can't make the quick changes and adaptations that's required. So you need to be able to do that. So from that sense, I think there is this change and transformation in what kind of leadership is required generally. Of course, it's not one size fits all, but that is one trait that we are looking at much more closely today than we did maybe 20 years ago.
Interesting. And we might well come back to leadership, but I think also it would be interesting to listen to a few younger people to see what their expectations are. And as always, in our global talks, we have invited young people representing the International Youth Think Tank, who actually this week have their annual conference just next door. So they are actively internationally here in Gothenburg. And we have now 2 students who will share with us their thoughts on working remotely and other things. And the 2 students we will listen to is, first, you will listen to Francisco José López Valles. Francisco is Italian-Colombian, and he is an International Youth Think Tank Youth Fellow from this year, from 2021. And following Francisco, we will listen to Johannes Kuhlmann, who is German and an International Youth Think Tank Youth Fellow from the very first conference held in 2019. So let's listen to what they have to say to us.
The pandemic has posed a lot of questions when it comes to the working environment policies. War for talent. What does the new normal imply for the war for talent? Is remote working staying for good? And more importantly, what is the point of having an office to work at? Does the job physically require the employee to be present at work? Or is the office there to provide a good environment for employees to be productive? Or is it more a formal requirement aimed at the surveillance of the employee? Or is it a place where employees can create links between each other and feel related to their employer? Based on this, we can ask ourselves, how do these dynamics play on remote working? Depending on what the employer expects from the employee, one can expect to see different working environment policies. Hence, the question is, what do you as an employer expect from your employees?
My name is Johannes Kuhlmann. I am 20 years old and part of a generation that has many names. Some call it Generation Z, some call it Generation Greater, or some call it the Post-Millennials. Today I want to answer the question how a company this day and age can be attractive as an employer to us. And because I think loads of talk has been done about the opportunities and advantages and disadvantages of home office and digital workspaces in general, I wanted to contribute something else. I believe that we post-millennials are more politicized than any other generation I know. Maybe due to the pressing importance of the current crises, or that the internet is an accelerator for civil society-initiated protests. Issues like justice for minorities, advancements on women's rights, and obviously the ongoing climate change are heavily important to us. For a company to be attractive, they must have a stand on those issues and make it clear that by taking a job opportunity, one is engaging in the process of helping to find solutions, and by that is doing something truly worthwhile.
Thank you, Francisco, and thank you, Johannes. Extremely interesting to have this shared with us. So what are your reflections? We have young people who are sharing their expectations on their work life. Any news for you, or was this what you expected?
No, of course, it's slightly different than what we are used to. But I would say when it comes to us at Cellink or BICO, of course, with a bigger purpose that he was mentioning, we are, of course, a super attractive employer because we are not building furnitures or we're actually changing the future of medicine. So of course, it's a lot of people, all of our employees are super proud of being a part of that. And because we are, making sure that we come one step closer to find a cure to cancer, or taking away animal testing, or, changing that. But of course, the huge sustainability work we are constantly working on to proceed. And so that's more and more on a hot topic on a daily basis. And when it comes to other parts with the different motivation to attract new talents, he was talking about is it a requirement for working from home or whatever it could be. I would turn it around and say that we have seen a lot of employees that have been very lonely. So people want to be want to have an office to work from, and want to meet your colleagues, and especially from our side in all of the world, where we have a lot of different nationalities. Maybe you don't have your family here, maybe you don't have your friends here. So we have always said that we are like a family. We are eating dinners together, we're having after works together, of course, and celebrating holidays. We once had a guy calling me on the Christmas Eve and saying like, I was just wondering where is everyone?
Yeah.
And he didn't celebrate. So it's of course super important to keep up with that connection and culture. And so I would say that it's even more important to actually have somewhere to go now.
And isn't it, at least this is, and please say that I'm wrong if I am, but isn't it so that in a way, we could have thought that the younger generation, they would be more happy and at ease when it comes to working remotely and digitally, using digital tools. But they are also the ones who have not built their networks, who are more in need of really meeting up.
Absolutely.
I agree.
And I mean, the first question about new normal, first of all, I think it's quite important to stress that no one knows yet.
Yes.
No. So everyone is just trying out at this point, so trying to guess or trying to, just state this is the new normal. It's all just guesses, right? Everyone is still in the exploration of what works best and what does not work, and just day by day learning. We're doing changes weekly, basically, on different understandings of what our people want and for our customers also. But the first question was about, okay, so what is even the point of an office? One of the questions was, what is even the point? What we have seen is that, I mean, obviously the flexibility is key, but as you're saying, I mean, and as you're saying yourself, Malin, for younger talents, the need of an office, not having to just schedule a meeting to solve an issue, just being able to turn to your colleague and just discuss it, it's a value in that. So one of the things that we just put in place again is like 3 days a month, in the middle of the month, each month, which are actually days in, actual days in. Everyone has to come into the office 3 days a month. And the initial reaction to that can be, are you going backwards? Are you taking away something from me? Are you taking my flexibility? And then people come in. Actually, people were really positive about that at our company. But I mean, given the question, that would be a possible reaction, right? But then they come in and you get energy suddenly. And you start to remember, I mean, the positives of what was, So there's still a lot to be understood about the new normal, and to state what is. There is no fact to be stated at this point. And the second question, just to touch on that as well, he talks about political standpoints, or I mean, a generation that cares, right? And I don't like comparing generations, but I think it is interesting to look at the latest generation entering the job market to see the trends where we all are headed, right? Because if you take a look at people in their 20s now, they have grown up with an iPhone in their pockets their whole life. Okay, so what does that mean? They have had democratized information flow available all the time, right? So they are indeed very much used to checking out the hotel reviews before booking it. Always, and doing that with everything. So obviously they will do that with their employer as well. That does not mean that my generation won't, or that older generations won't. They will do that as well. But if we take a look at the youngest generation, you can see where we're all headed, right? And I would say that maybe for Jonathan it was, right?
Johannes,
Johannes, sorry. For Johannes, maybe the climate questions are indeed important, and I absolutely agree. For the generation, that will be a huge question. But for other talents, other questions will be important. And the main point is that they will be able to research that, about the employer.
And I think that is coming to one key topic. I was earlier speaking about purpose, and we all were, and the connection. But I think one thing there is to be credible. I mean, don't try to be what you're not. We all need to do things to save our planet and think. So that is something, I think that's a foundation. Then if you are selling metal powder, or if you are selling furniture, be key on what you are and what you're good at and where you want to go. And there will be talent who wants to work for that purpose and in that industry. And I think the dangerous thing is when there's greenwashing, or we try to be something that you can't actually, which isn't a part of the core, because then that will be transparent into the market, and then you fail. So I don't think we don't all have to save the planet, so to speak, in our company statement but we all need to do something, and we need to be clear and transparent and genuine in what we do.
So it's really a matching where both parties need to fit together. And if I don't fit together with company A, then I probably fit with company B.
Exactly.
And everyone is happy.
I agree. And then also I think one interesting comment was on the topic of control. Is the office there to help my leaders control me? And I actually do think that one of the difficult things that we've been hearing from our clients and from ourselves as well, when it's through the pandemic, I was used to being able to see what my employees were doing, and now I don't. So I think that has already and will change both our systems and approaches to performance management and engagement, but also coming back to leadership, how do you then lead and engage and help grow people where you don't see them on a daily basis?
I think that's so interesting. That is maybe for me one of the most interesting questions with this whole new situation, because I think that that is what everyone thinks, myself indeed as well, prior to the pandemic, that there's an element of control in seeing someone in the office, right? But thinking about it, I would maybe, I don't know for sure, but maybe even state that, seeing someone in the office takes away some of the possibility to confront brutal facts, because I see you and I like you and we're people and we're here, and in a post-pandemic world, it will be, this is your results. you know, and it has to be much more measured, because if you don't see the person, you don't have no other choice. We've already talked about this, right? The KPIs in all verticals, in leadership, in sales, in performance, in everything. So in some sense, the control has indeed increased or will increase, you know, post-pandemic.
And the focus on the right part of the control.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
But
Very
often is the best ideas are often come out by over a cup of coffee, or when you're actually sitting together, you know, looking at a problem, finding a solution, and actually move forward from that. And that is something that everyone miss. And as you're saying, like, okay, if everyone are working remotely, then you will not pop up with all of those new ideas or new interactions, or you know, oh, here we can actually find a more efficient way of working, or here we can actually find a new product, or whatever it could be. And that interaction, I know and I see and I feel it so much when we're in the office. And that is also back to the leadership. It's really hard to actually track what everyone can understand and track what everyone is doing on a daily basis, but you know, to actually lift people up or motivate people to actually take a step in another direction, or to not only take care of the employees but also grow the employees. It's
absolutely.
super.
What about if because now I think we've discussed, and as you say, Poyan, we're not there yet, and it will be a constant change and feeling from one side to another, and where to be. But what you're all saying is be true to your values, find the right match. Working remotely will continue to be here, but in a hybrid format. When it comes to regions, and we touched on that before as well, but what could regions do? What makes, because it's we have different categories. We have people who already live in a region looking for possibilities to flower and flourish and find a good job. We have people who might be interested in moving to a region. We also have what we discussed when you were with us last time, Karin, on that seminar on search for talent. The diaspora was mentioned. The individuals who, for one reason or another, are moving away from a city, from a region, and do we, from the same city region, try to keep in contact? So what about the regional situation and importance, and would you have any reflections or advice? And
I think there is a lot in that question, or that, you know, the diaspora. And Gothenburg is a large city, but not a huge city.
Yes.
So quite a few people in this generation, they move away to see the world, study somewhere else, and they should.
Yes.
I was one of them some 20 years back, and the question is then, how do we get them back? And I think there is a work to be done in branding from a regional perspective, because especially within a number of fields where I think the general view of Gothenburg is that there aren't enough jobs within field X or field Y, and that might have been true 10 years back, but the pace of change in the region has been so great. So, for example, looking at tech, 10 years back, we had clients saying, no, we don't want to base our business here in Gothenburg on that topic or within that field, because we fear that there is not enough talent. That is not the case anymore. Same thing, we work a lot with investment companies, private equity companies. There didn't used to be that many in Gothenburg 10 years back. So those talent who wanted to work with investments, they moved to Stockholm or London or Copenhagen or Zurich. Now there's plenty in Gothenburg, but I don't think that it's visible and clear to everybody.
And that's a challenge. Who is responsible to make it known?
But are there plenty now? Because I wouldn't know that at all. Are there plenty? Because I would still state that I don't know.
I
at
think
all.
we're
I'm
pretty
like-
bad.
so-
Oh, sorry, not saying bad,
That's
but I
good.
think we could do a lot of improvements when it comes to scream out a little louder about Gothenburg and what we actually have in Gothenburg. We in Cellink and BICO have been pretty good on, like bragging, but it's not that Swedish to actually say that we are here. This is what we do. Look at this, and also the networking. We have lost the networking a little bit of understanding what we actually have here in this region.
And coming back to your question, is it plenty? I mean, that's a definition question,
course,
but I think that's, for us, it's often a situation where we come in, where companies here in the region, international companies, are looking for talent. And one of the things that we bring to the table is a network of people who are in the diaspora, who we know who want to come back, but they're looking for the right opportunity to enable to make that connection. So,
And I guess also the question is, who is trustworthy in bragging or whatever we want to do about regional strengths?
This question about especially Gothenburg, since it is my hometown, and I am a what do you call it?
The diaspora.
The
You moved to
diaspora.
London.
How do we bring you back?
No. So I've been thinking about this for a long time. I mean, this is really a favorite subject because I've been quite disappointed in our area.
Yeah.
Really, because I've seen my classmate from the Gothenburg School of Economics, Business and Law. Everyone moved to Stockholm, for example, or and I moved myself to after 30 years, I moved to Stockholm, and then I moved to London, right? I'm coming back one day, but I still don't know why, okay? It's probably because of my family, and if they weren't here, I wouldn't have a good answer to that. I would probably move to Stockholm. Why? Because, well, it's where it happens. That would be my simple answer to that. Then why does it? So if we talk about a region, as you were to talk about a company and employer branding efforts in a company, you would not, again, talk about a one-off, like do this and it's solved. You would talk about different tactics, right? And first of all, one of the main tactics is obviously the power allocated 99.9% in Sweden to Stockholm. All departments, all important decisions are taken in Stockholm, right? And obviously, money follows the power, and all the finance, all the important, at least, or biggest finance decisions are done there as well. So there is a brain drain of obvious reasons.
So because that's so interesting. Currently, you live in London.
Yeah.
And we're happy to have you visiting here.
Happy to be here. Happy to be well.
Often. And what kind, both for you individually, you're part of the diaspora.
Yeah.
So what kind of context would you like to have to nurture your feeling? And what would be the trustworthy source of bragging about the possibilities in Gothenburg?
So first of all, when we talk about, if we just take it back to the context of a company, we're all very agreed on a purpose of a company, right? And the values of a company being important. Okay, so if we take just that and apply to a region, what is the purpose of Gothenburg? What are the values of Gothenburg? Okay? So we all agree on that is important if we are to go to work for a company. But let's just do that about Gothenburg. What is the clear purpose of Gothenburg? I'm absolutely sure that we could figure out the answer to that. But I'm also absolutely sure that that answer can be much more clear. This is Gothenburg. This is why Gothenburg. And I am very proud of Cellink and BICO being a Gothenburgian company. But there are too few. We're still living off quite a few amounts of huge successes, right? Yeah. But if you talk about Stockholm, I met the founder of Truecaller the other day at this ceremony that we're talking about. So he got the Pioneer of the Year award. And they're a $40 billion company, stock listed now. There are quite a few BICO Cellinks in Stockholm, right? And they have the network and everything. So I think in a regional level, it would start to question on what is the purpose, what are the values of this place, and many different tactics in play, taking power here, stating clearly why Gothenburg, finding the soul.
And also I think cooperation. Absolutely. I mean, this is one part of it, and then actually through that cooperation, being able to state what you just described, Poyan, but also making the 1 + 1 become 3 rather than too.
Yeah.
And I know that, as an example, the West Sweden Chamber of Commerce,
Yes.
they are actively going out to universities around Sweden. I don't know whether internationally as well, but at least in Sweden, to tell the story about this region. And I guess that's one way. We will listen to a third student today. And this student is an Italian student, also representing, obviously, the International Youth Think Tank, Michele Castrezzati, and he is a youth fellow from the 2020 conference. And let's listen to what he has to say.
We have always thought of talent as being something people either have or have not, and that employers can exploit. But if there's one thing the pandemic has taught us, is that we get the most out of people only when we care about their well-being, their time, their mental health, their energy. Only when employees see that their needs are met, that they're being listened to, then they're motivated. And to me, talent is nothing without motivation. I've seen many of my peers whose talent is sleeping because they're not engaged, because they're not motivated. Talent needs to be awakened by motivation. So yeah, people might be more or less talented, but to me, the real variable is motivation. If it's low, it can render a talented person totally unproductive. And if it's high, it can make up for the lack of talent.
Thank you. A lovely piece of art, actually, sharing his views with us. And thank you again to the International Youth Think Tank for letting us borrow your fantastic ambassadors and fellows. Reactions on this?
Couldn't agree more. It's all about motivation. We have hired so many wild cards, but with a super motivation of being a part of something or being able to achieve something, and that's key for everything. You can have how much competencies or experiences, many years, but if you don't have the motivation, you're nothing. And it's also one of the trickiest parts now when working remotely, to actually see or check in on the motivation. You can see that someone is executing or delivering, but you can't really feel the motivation in the same way that you could feel, when you actually have the pulse in the office or when people are coming together. So, and we have always been looking into all of the employees like plants. He was showing the plant there, and some people likes to be in the sun all the time, or some people always want to be in the shadow or behind. Some people want water every day and appreciation every day, and some get really uncomfortable if they're getting ground down in the sunshine. So it's finding the motivation in different people, because we're not motivated of the same thing. So finding the motivation of different individuals is key to success, I would say.
Lovely. Poyan?
Well, I agree on the part of caring. I do. That's how I built my company. We've been quite famous and quite successful with exactly that, about caring for real. And I mean, I absolutely agree on all parts that you were talking about, also on the implications in terms of leadership, okay? But I do not agree on the first statement. Talent is something that you either have or you don't. And that has been a preconception among companies. I would say that is untrue. I don't agree on that. That is not how we see talent. That is not how our customers have discussed talent prior to the pandemic either. It's a binary, either you have talent or you don't. So I do not agree on that. And you know, motivation, I absolutely agree on the discussion on motivation. However, I think I don't usually like the word motivation, because motivation is something you usually have when you don't need it, and when you need it, it's gone.
Okay.
You know, so let's just talk about eating healthy. You know, when you look yourself in the mirror and like, yeah, I really should start eating healthy. You have a lot of motivation, right? So the motivation is high when you don't really need it, but you need it when you see that sweet on the table. You know, but then the motivation is gone. so if you in that situation, you would need the motivation. But what helps you then is the dedication. You know,
the motivation is also changing. That was what like
Absolutely.
if you can find the motivator in each and every one
Absolutely.
at the right timing, then that's of course the key. But you can't
absolutely.
find it if you don't care.
Absolutely. So it all goes back to that question. Goes back to leadership.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
to being able to not only motivate all the time, but also to keep up the dedication in tough times. You know, it's not all about keeping everyone happy and it's ice creams and balloons all the time. You know, it's not about that. It's about good leadership. Is about taking you through the challenges, and when the motivation is not there, make sure the dedication is there. And I absolutely agree about the caring part.
Yeah.
But not all.
Excellent, thank you. Malin?
Very interesting, and I agree. I think we all can agree on the caring part. I think one of the reasons why I changed industry and came into Alumni was, it's stated as one of our values as collegiality, but that was something that actually came through all the people I met prior when I was a candidate for actually companies that we were recruiting for, and now as a part of Alumni. And I think that makes all the difference in, the force and the power that you get out of someone like me, but also all our colleagues. But also I think the key is I agree with you, that I don't think we've seen, even before the pandemic, the notion of either you have talent or you don't. The question is talent for what, and in what context and in what phase of a company's journey. So I think that matching is also important, because someone who used to be, spot on right in a context a year ago might not be today. And I think that taking away the drama out of that and helping people grow or change and move, I think that's one of the key ways of.
But I can also say that this is one of the biggest challenges that we have, or that everyone with this generation, that as you're saying, like it should always be like, it's always partying, it's always top motivator, and it's always, I would say, I'm sorry to say it out loud, but sometimes I can feel that this generation could be a little bit spoiled. Because everyone is so super ambitious, and the sky is the limit, and everyone should, want to do what they're best at and be super motivated constantly. But that is not life. Life comes with, challenges and a lot of persistence, and sometimes even blood and sweat and tears, and also to keeping up with good days and bad days, or challenging days, and this this generation it's to always be on top.
For the kicks.
Exactly. So
it should be a little bit of cumbersome to get the dedication, as you discussed.
And also to not only be passionate about what you're doing, but also have a heck of a lot of persistence to make sure to execute on it.
And the dedication you come back to.
You know the concept of situational leadership.
Exactly, we're working constantly with it.
And I've done a lot of lectures at universities to students on situational leadership, because this is quite interesting. You have a generation here, and not only a generation only. It implies on us all. We've done this. So it's not this generation and my generation. I mean, it has implications on all. But if you look at them, you can see the trends for all, right? Yeah. But they've grown up in a time where you can check out on Instagram, and while we are doing this, you can see someone doing something else that is much more fun. It looks much more fun, and it's this in a filter. It looks nice also. Why am I not doing this? Why am I sitting my bench in my university? Why am I not that successful? So it builds up a expectation that is not always true. And then, if you know the concepts of situational leadership, it says that you have basically 4 different phases. In a first phase of an employment, basically you're so engaged that everything I instruct you, you will just take it in and do like that, right? But in the next phase, in the second phase, that engagement will go down, and then now it's not as easy to develop, right? So now you need a leader's support. And that's the problem, because when you get to the second phase, as in any relationship, I mean, with my first girlfriend when I was 16 years old, it was the same. And with my current girlfriend, after 10 months or 16 months or whatever, 1.5 years, you get into a new normal there as well, right? And then the initial love isn't what it maybe was. However, there are other things in play, right? With the support, with the caring for each other. And that is the exact same I usually...
Concept.
That's a very same concept as with an employer and an employee, you know? And the leader's role in that to support, to make them understand.
It's also, we're working, like, I'm always saying that we're doing matchmaking. Matching the right candidate with the right position and the right culture and the right... So you spend like tons of hours and days and months and years looking for the perfect partner, but not when it comes for the perfect employer. So this is why we're spending so much more time and effort to actually, not feel and touch each other, but actually getting to know each other if we are a perfect or a good fit, not only for the quick fix or just because we're a hot topic right now or a cool company, but actually...
It's a match there.
Exactly.
Match. But over time as well.
But imagine getting to the step 2 of the situational leadership, and you have leaders that do not even know what situational leadership is. By the way, take a look, Google situational leadership. It's a good concept. It's a good
Excellent.
Concept. Then what you will have is people quitting. You know?
Listen, we are in the end, unfortunately, of our first hour together. Hopefully we can invite you back. And I actually got from my colleague Jan here a couple of questions that were addressed also throughout chat function. Things like, can you preserve loyalty when working remotely? Do the workforce feel that they can live the brand, are examples. And then we had someone else who also really wanted to make sure that this edition of Global Talks will be available, and it will online. So what I propose, as time is more or less up, is that we will continue the discussion after the cameras switched off. But if I may ask you to just briefly in written comment, and then we'll post that on those questions. We post that on our homepage in order for you out there. And I would really like to say thank you. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. To me, it's been extremely rewarding. And very positive, and I like that, because as you said, the new normal is still to be developed, is still to come, and it will probably continue to develop. But I've gotten a lot of good insights on working remotely, working in the office, how to build a brand, to bring in the younger people, to go from motivation to dedication. Whether we should use the term talent or not could be another thing. So many thoughts. So thank you for sharing that. And for all of you out there, make sure to follow us and to share, if you like this edition, to share it with your colleagues and friends, and send any questions to us, and we will make sure to have them commented, if not answered. As always, we are happy to, as a little bit of thank you to the 3 of you, donate a small sum to a local charity called Räddningsmissionen. This time, a very special and important event, and that's happening next Tuesday. Instead of all the buying this week, they are looking into the Giving Tuesday, which occurs on the 30th of November. So we are happy to donate a small sum as a thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
So from all of us to all of you, thank you for participating today, and happy holidays. Bye.